Kellyanne, how can President Trump strike a unifying note at his State of the Union address with the threat of a national emergency?
Well, the two are not the same. The national emergency, if he were in fact to execute on that, Kristen, which he has not so far, is because he believes that we have a crisis on the southern border, and the Congress has failed to do its job, this Congress, last Congress, and for quite a while, to make sure that we have what we need at the southern border, which of course the centerpiece of is a physical barrier wall, steel slats, but it's also the additional Border Patrol personnel, the immigration judges, tackling TPS and DACA, certainly meeting those humanitarian needs that have been identified, and also having more technology for the drug surveillance and detection, handling, and interdiction. But at the same time, this president is going to call for an end to the politics of resistance, retribution, and call for more comedy, C-O-M-I-T-Y.
Do you resist the president or question him?
No, not at all. He's calling for cooperation, and he's calling for comedy, C-O-M-I-T-Y, and also compromise, and is going to point out a couple of examples where this has actually happened on his watch. I think it's also an address that celebrates so many accomplishments for the United States of America that he would like to highlight as the leader of our nation.
Kellyanne, what do you say to the critics? Kellyanne, what do you say to the critics who say that the president's administration is in chaos? Can you speak?
Well, they've said that from day one, and most of the people who either have been forced out or fired or couldn't get through the door in the first place like to tell all of you that. I think that you've been trying to run that narrative from the beginning, and the American people see the results. They either have more money in their pockets or they don't. They either were one of the 8 million Americans who got a bonus or a raise because of the tax cuts, or they're not. I mean, there are no people who have. These small businesses tell us how much they like the deregulation, the tax cuts, the economic prosperity. You can't argue with the economic numbers. You try, but you actually can't legitimately. No, of course not. I'm right here. But I think that becomes a shorthanded excuse for people who can't figure out how to criticize the policies, the things that have actually happened. I mean, what the president calls for tomorrow in his speech is pretty remarkable on a couple of fronts. I'll leave that to him. But really, when you read it, Brian, I don't think you can come away and say, okay, I need to resist this and be against this because it's Donald Trump's idea. You've got to stop and say, that would be a beautiful thing for this country while we're all alive at this time, at a time such as this, if X happened or if we work toward Y.
You think that's what happens? They just resist it because it's
Well, some do, but most don't. No, I think that most people in public life are there because they care very much about the constituents they represent or the state they represent or the people of this great nation and the nation itself. But I think that they should listen to the message and not always just look at the messenger. And I think a little bit more on policy, a lot less on politics, a little bit more on principle, a lot less on palace intrigue, and you'll be able to hear the words that are stated. It is a challenge to all of us in this country when the president stands up and says, let's work together on X or Y or Z, as he will tomorrow. And I hope people will hear that call.
Does President Trump believe that Ralph Northam should resign, that Governor Northam should resign?
Well, he's just made clear the way he feels about it. I mean, it's confounding to many people, it turns out, that the sitting governor, Democrat of Virginia, who's still there, despite the calls from many leaders and pretty much all, or close to all, the 2020 aspirants on the Democratic side, it's tough to keep count of that, have called for him to resign. The president has said he just thinks it's unforgivable, it's unconscionable. Or you can go back to his tweet and his words that this person apologized and then said, gee, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. But the president also said something at the end of his tweet, which didn't get a ton of coverage last week from all of you, which is that he gave an unforgivable statement about late-term abortion. I mean, the governor referred to last week, and I know you didn't want to cover it as much as you want to cover the current story, but the governor referred to the individual as an infant. He didn't say uterine material, polywog, fuzzy image on a sonogram. He said infant. So he's admitted that it is, if you look up the definition, I'm pretty sure, if you want to fact-check infant, I'm pretty sure it's a newborn baby whose gender you can see, is breathing, that's alive, crying, smiling, whatever it is. And then we'll keep the infant, quote, comfortable with Ralph Northam's words, and then we'll have the mother consult with the physician as to what to do. What does that mean? I'll adopt them. Bring them to me.
Can I just follow up on that?
Cheerful chaos in my house, Brian.
Allegation against Lieutenant Governor Fairfax. Has the president heard about that? Does he have
I have not discussed that with the president at all, but I would make note that many people, well, I don't know anybody who's not disturbed by the images that we see in this medical yearbook, and really disturbed by the governor's changing story. I think what he's doing is really what people hate about politicians, Francesca, which is how craven that you just need to cling to power rather than heed the call of the people in your party who want you gone.
On that an announcement of Venezuela tomorrow.
Of what?
Of Venezuela, any announcement?
Again, I'll let the president give his address tomorrow, but it's very wide-ranging, and it tackles some of the accomplishments, the vision and moving forward, some of our goals, but also news of the day. And I would just point you to the vice president and the vice president's remarks in South Florida on Friday, and his meeting with the Venezuelan.
Tomorrow night, I'm not asking to say to reveal if the president will declare a national emergency or not, but will we learn his intention one way or another tomorrow night, and will we also learn whether or not when and where a meeting with Kim Jong-un is taking place?
In the speech? In the address?
Yeah.
Probably not. On the first one, I mean, the president could not be more clear that he has the absolute right to declare a national emergency. It has never been his preferred option of first resort, second, 10th, 12th resort. It would be the last resort after Congress has completed its work. We've got the conferees doing their work. Let's see what they come up with before February 15th. But at the same time, the president's made very clear that it's his first and solemn duty to keep us all safe, and he believes that includes securing the southern border.
Is he worried about the political backlash like Mitch McConnell is warning him against on the national emergency?
One more time?
Is he worried about the political backlash that reportedly Mitch McConnell was
He's worried about the human trafficking, the drugs coming through. He's worried about the fact that these young children are taking this perilous journey 1,000 miles or so from the Northern Triangle countries because coyotes have promised their parents, they've promised their parents things that just don't exist, aren't delivered upon. As the president has said many times, I'll repeat on his behalf, come here legally. Be one of the 33 million Americans who have done that. He wants people to come here legally.
What about with the national emergency? The current national emergency is not in the public opinion. It's not popular right now.
Does he make that disagreement? Just his own feelings, his own personal beliefs?
No, not at all. He explained all that to CBS's Margaret Brennan, who I think led a fantastic interview with the president for you to see. So he actually answered those questions. You can go back and look at his answers, Abby.
He made it sound like it was his own personal beliefs that he was basing his disagreement.
I'm sure he's not interrupting a woman
Ralph Northam
or two.
over the weekend unprompted, but I think a lot of people wondered why he didn't do the same thing when Steve King was in the news about the white supremacy comments.
Abby, you guys always want moral equivalence. You always want moral equivalence on everything. If you're not disturbed by what you see, I know you are, and I know I am. I know we all are disturbed by what we see. And the spectacle we saw from the Virginia governor himself, literally looking at the camera. I don't know if somebody did a quick focus group or just wrote this stuff for him to write. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yes, of course. So sorry about what I'm so sorry for what I did, and now it's 24 hours later, I didn't do it, but I might want to moonwalk. I mean, what is that? And so, again, he's a Democratic governor of Virginia. The people of Virginia will have to decide what to do, or the leaders of his party, if they can convince him to listen to them. I think they've pretty much all called for his resignation. But the president weighed in on that. And if you're going to keep on, all of you, ignoring this pro-abortion in like the 10th month way that the Democratic Party is going, then you didn't listen carefully enough on October 19, 2016, when our president took the case to Hillary Clinton and said, excuse me, you're the extreme one on abortion. You would rip the baby out of its mother's womb an hour before it's born, and here we are. In fact, Ralph Northam took it a step further. It's already born, and we call it an infant.
Is the president going to touch on that tomorrow night, Kellyanne?